A Space Marine captain versus the best warrior of an entire species, one that also happens to be the prophet of gods. Let's not turn Space Marines into Mary Sues. The issue of Space Marines earning the label of Mary Sue isn't a new occurrence. It's been going on for years. The Swarmlord, Avatar of Cain, and Ghazghkull represent the highest level, if not the very best, as warriors of their respective factions and species. In past lore, the defeats of these big bads have usually been performed by high-ranking individuals, like Chapter Masters, most notably Marneus Calgar of the Ultramarines and Dante of the Blood Angels. Ghazghkull, however, has been brought to a draw by Ragnar Blackmane, and while the result of a draw would be a positive change, Ragnar Blackmane is by his own designation equivalent to the rank of captain. So this is actually a step further in the wrong direction. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of Ragnar versus Ghazghkull, I think it's worth establishing a few key points. It's worth acknowledging that some of the older incidences of these offenses may in fact be made worse due to the filter of time. To be specific, it's Guilliman's fault. The reintroduction of the Primarch of the Ultramarines to the setting is a relatively new change to the ever-expanding narrative. Before Guilliman's resurrection, Chapter Masters were the pinnacle of humanity's heroes, which makes that scenario far more acceptable. To appropriate some Dragon Ball terms, if there are two fighters engaging in combat, and they are of an approximate equal power level, then we as viewers can accept either outcome as being logically consistent. It's why there's drama in a close fight, because based on the rules and the story told thus far, the fight could go either way, and we believe it. And if properly set up, I can accept the best of the Imperium going blow for blow with the best of the enemy faction. But time is a cruel mistress, because if the Chapter Master can trade with the best, then the silly Xenos stand no chance against our newest and best warrior. But that is sort of the nature of things. It's likely to happen with such a breadth of stories, and lore which is steadily expanding. It requires a bit of acknowledgement, and I think until it does, such events should be viewed fondly as being of simpler times. Jumping ahead to a setting post-Guilliman's return, Baal is besieged by High Fleet Leviathan, leading to a fight between Dante and the Swarmlord. And Dante comes out on top. And look, I get it. Dante is one of the greatest heroes in the Imperium, a master of a first founding chapter. He is one of the oldest and experienced Marines in service. But I still feel his leveling of the Swarmlord cheapens the Tyranid's position. The caveat here is that this is a novel, and in a manner of speaking, I can let it slide, as the goal of a story is to make it satisfying for the protagonist point of view. Not to say the good guys win because they are the good guys, the plot still has to ensure the protagonist earns their win, and thankfully Devastation of Baal does an adequate job here. But aside from the importance of ensuring forces appear competent and confrontations feel dramatic, players and/or fans of Xenos and Chaos factions aren't in it for just serving as the heel to the good guy Imperium. Uniquely to the IP, the narrative exchanges in 40k's lore need to serve all the factions involved. It's a bit of an odd comparison, but players and fans of factions are much more in line with sports fans, with narrative exchanges garnering attention in the same manner as a big sporting event. Where this should be most evident is in campaigns and campaign books, which are positioning factions in conflict with each other without the narrative bias present in novelizations, where the fans are interested to see how their faction comes out. And I posit that it is here where it becomes absolutely critical that victories factions have over others need to be earned and presented in a logically consistent manner. And that brings us back to the event at hand, Saga of the Beast. The lore in this campaign book is paired with the release of both Gaz and Ragnar's new models. That in itself isn't a surprise, but interestingly, its lore explains why the models have their new appearance. Here's the play-by-play. These two have their fight in their previous incarnations. It results in a draw, where these two are both left near death. Ragnar crosses the Rubicon, becoming Primaris. Gaz gets Frankenstein and becomes bigger. And when it comes time for round 2, they don't fight, because Ragnar can tell he won't win. Why would you do this? It's a terrible choice that sets ablaze my righteous fury, and I will explain why. First of all, why would you promote and tease everyone that these two are going to fight each other if that event doesn't even come to be? It's disingenuous, and in the case of this narrative, extremely underwhelming. But more importantly, how is this a good outcome for either side? For the orcs, the takeaway is downright rude. The best character in your faction, the biggest and best of the orcs, was only as good as a highly skilled Space Marine captain. But now, with his new upgrade, you better watch out, because he's a real threat. And for the Space Wolves, wow, what an unlikable character. Ragnar Blackmane takes on an enemy who ought to be way above his weight class, displays such masterful skill and combat prowess that the fight ends in a draw. He has no flaws, suffers no consequences, ending the story stronger than he was at the start, even though he overcame nothing, and is as wise as he ever was. If you want to make a character likable, they not only need to be admirable, but we need to see them struggle and persevere. Look what happened to Cato Sicarius, the previous title holder of the Space Marine Mary Sue. With the opening of the Great Rift, Cato Sicarius' ship gets lost in the warp. He eventually escapes the hellish dimension. He remains as skilled, but in his interactions with his superiors, it is made clear he has room for growth. His experience carries with it his share of trauma and survivor's guilt, but he continues to stick to his principles and carry out his duty. And he has become all the more liked by the community for it, because that is how heroes are measured. What really kills it for me is that I can see a good story, or at least a more satisfying one, lost in the gears. If the objective of the narrative was to create the story around the release of larger, better scaled versions of the characters, Gaskell doesn't need to get decapitated. Look at Abaddon's release from last year. It wasn't delivered as some sort of surgical upgrade. It was understood that the model has been redone. He's larger and truer to the status of his character, and better fits in with the current era of model releases. The size change for Gaz could have been accepted under the same rationale. Or if the size increase needed to be explained, here's an easy one. I'll just throw it out there. Gaz has gotten larger because orcs naturally get larger as they keep fighting, and he's been fighting for a long time. And if Ragnar needs a reason to cross the Rubicon, and has a reputation for being impetuous, why not use that and have it serve a purpose for a loss? Ragnar, in the process of overcoming his brash nature, is overpowered and taken aback by the cunning wit of Ghazghkull Thraka. The fight ends with Ragnar bloodied, his body broken, but more importantly, he is humbled. He still crosses the Rubicon, reborn as a Primaris, and is wiser for what he has gone through. Maybe represent it with a small rule or ability, whatever. But the end goal here isn't to have Space Marines be more likable, or that they have to stop performing awesome heroic feats. Space Marines are my favorite faction. The power fantasy elements, the storied histories, the cool aesthetic, it all speaks to the sensibilities I prefer. But our heroes are defined by their challenges. And having a universe where the alien threats are serious, where the big bads of the alien races are absolute dominant forces that are truly intimidating, only serves to make our heroes and the entire setting superior. Well, that's a wrap on this one, folks. Thanks for watching. It was a bit of a rant, but these were my thoughts on Saga of the Beast, as well as character combats and narrative exchanges in general. What did you think? Was there anything I missed? I would love to hear your perspective, so feel free to leave it below. If you enjoyed this video, agreed with the sentiments, or if you are brimming with WA energy, hit that like button. And if you want to help this channel grow, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.